IVM.
This week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is brought to you by Storytel. Storytel is a website where you can get ebooks and audiobooks whenever you want them. For the duration of their sponsorship of our show, we're going to be recommending a new ebook or audiobook to you each week. This week's recommendation is called Do You Know What? Life According to Freddie Flintoff. It's, of course, by former cricketer turned comedian Freddie Flintoff, Andrew Flintoff, and it's a great, interesting listen about his life as a sports person and life after being a sports person professionally. So if you visit storytel.com/IVM, you get a 30-day free trial instead of the normally available 14-day free trial. So again, that URL is storytel.com/IVM for a 30-day free trial. And now enjoy this week's show. Welcome to episode 88 of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We have all three of us on the show today. I'm your host, Ashwin from Cincinnati. Joining me is, of course, DJ in London and Varun in Singapore. So, gents, thanks for joining. A little bit of a bittersweet time to be recording because for our listeners, we are recording this about 5 minutes after the last ball was bowled in the first ODI in the India-West Indies series. So, Varun, let me start with you. How are you feeling? It sounds like we had a great end to the T20 series and then a soft start to the ODI series.
Yeah, and it's been funny because you would think that T20 is more West Indies game and we beat them in the third one. And that ODI is more India's game and we just lost the first one. So a bit bittersweet, as you said.
Yeah, really well said. I think, DJ, you've talked a lot about kind of recency bias on this show where our mood and our tone tends to be reflective of the most recent game. But since we were with you guys last, India first was able to seal the 3-match T20 series with an incredible win. So, DJ, did you get a chance to watch that third T20? It was midweek, unfortunately, I know.
Yeah, I did get to watch it actually. And it was absolutely incredible because we seemed to almost out West Indies. The West Indies just kept going for it and then took some quick wickets and just really enjoyed the smashing by our top three.
Yeah, well said. So let's double click on that a little. Varun, do you want to walk us through what happened in the first T20? Interestingly, obviously, Rohit and Rahul opened. An unusual figure walked out at number 3. But then, of course, the usual suspect came out at 4 and took us home. So talk to us about that one.
Yeah, I think it was incredible, right? India knew that they were under pressure in the third game. The series was 1-1. There was a lot of chat about them not being the T20 side that they should be or they should live up to. And Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul came out all guns blazing, right? They put on 135 before the first wicket fell. Rohit especially went at a strike rate of 200 plus, which I think is great because in T20 cricket, part of India's problem has always been that after 10 overs, we're probably 70 for 0, and that's just not good enough. So I think Rohit did really well. I think KL Rahul batted exceptionally. He got to 91 or 56 and really kind of steadied the innings. The disappointment, Ashwin, as you mentioned, was Rishabh Pant. He came out there, promoted up the order, almost no pressure with almost 9 overs to go and got out on the second ball. And he just hit it straight down the fielder's throat. You could see him smile. I think you could see everyone else smile. But I think that all the smiles were out of just a lot of frustration. And I know there's a lot of debate that's gone on since then that people have basically said, I think this is the end of the road for Rishabh Pant. I'm going to stop there before we discuss Kohli's innings to see if you wanted to add anything there.
No, I think well said. We'll talk a little bit more about Kohli. DJ, let me ask you about the openers really quick. So we'll talk about ODIs next. But in a T20 standpoint, has Rahul sealed his spot as India's first choice opener? Is Rahul and Rohit the combination we'll see batting in October, November 2020 at the World Cup?
Now, to my mind, I absolutely think that is the case because, I think we've been speaking about it on the show for a while. And KL Rahul is one of our best T20 players. And Rohit, of course, is a fantastic T20 player. Yes, Shikhar was in there probably to give the left-hand, right-hand variety. And he's done okay. He doesn't strike that quickly. He's not got a great average. So I think KL also provides the wicket-keeping option, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But I think Rahul and Rohit definitely my pick for the top 2. And I also want to apologize for actually saying that our top 3 did really well in the third T20. I'd completely blanked the Rishabh Pant.
It was our normal top 3 all performed well, but Kohli didn't bat at 3 in that game. So Varun, Kohli walked in at 4. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, Kohli walked in at 4. Again, to be honest, he looked a little bit angry with himself after the first couple of shots, which I don't know now, maybe just a motivation tactic for himself. But he wasn't timing the ball as well in his first 5, 6, 7 deliveries. And after that, boy, did he just take off. Kohli got to 70 of 29 balls. The first time I've seen a Kohli innings where he's hit more sixes than four. He had 4 fours but 7 sixes. Each shot was better than the previous. And again, this, I said this in the last episode as well. Kohli is probably India's best finisher. So for him to finish off the innings like that and take India to 240 for 3, it was just incredible. I mean, a run rate of 12 runs per over consistently for 20 overs was just fantastic.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, ended at 240 runs. DJ, on last week's episode, I think we recorded when this series was 1-1 and we talked about predictions. And I think you said India is going to take it. And I said whichever team bats second is going to win. Obviously, you were right. I was wrong. But is this the start of India's turnaround, do we hope, in the T20 format on putting our batting first demons behind us? Because, I mean, to bat first against the West Indies, put up 240 and win by 66, 67 runs is pretty incredible. Was this a one-off? Do you think they're starting to figure out how to bat first and win T20s?
So I absolutely hope it is the revival of our T20 fortunes, but I'm not sure. And the reason I'd say that is because this is the Wankhede, remember, right? And we lost to the West Indies previously in the World T20 semi-final, putting on only 191. And you could see that the batsmen, when they came out, the pitch was so true that they knew from ball one that they could just hit through the line without worrying about any lateral movement. The bounce was true. It came onto the bat. And they didn't have to worry about anything. The mind was absolutely clear. They were all out attack and there was no holding back. I remember a game between England and South Africa, I think, where England chased down 230 plus, if I'm not wrong, which was the highest chase in a T20 game at the time. And I mean, I hope it's a change in approach, and it was very refreshing, of course, in watching our guys smash the West Indies all over the park and not relent and take their foot off the gas. But I think it had to do more with the conditions than a change in approach, because, I mean, you saw the first 2 games as well, right? And it wasn't really that. So I think it was more the conditions. So I'd say it's a one-off, but good signs, signs that showed that we could put on runs at that rate if we needed to. And of course, we played almost the perfect innings, like 240 for 3 was incredible batting.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think Varun said it well. It's a lot of it is around the innings being paced, and Rohit and Shikhar tend to be more slow, steady starters. Rohit and Rahul found a way to unleash. So, Varun, before we wrap up with the West Indies innings, let me ask you, we're now playing ODIs against the West Indies, of course. In the new year, it starts with some T20s against Sri Lanka, and then we travel to New Zealand to play some T20s. Is this the top 5 batsmen in whatever order that we think is going to happen? So Rohit, Rahul, Kohli, Iyer, and Pant. Is that the 5 you see going to as the top 5 batsmen to Australia, New Zealand?
Yeah, I do. And in fact, I just want to say that DJ sent us a message earlier today that quoted Ravi Shastri saying KL Rahul might be an option to keep for the T20 World Cup. So keeping that in mind, I actually think Pant may or may not make it. It's too early to say, but I think he's the only doubt.
Interesting. So, yeah, just to recap for our listeners, it does sound like Shastri went on the record saying a couple of things this past week, one about MS Dhoni, but in this case, we're talking about what he said about KL Rahul, who keeps gloves for Karnataka, keeps gloves for his IPL franchise, wherever he plays, and maybe an option to keep or to wicket keep or take the gloves for Team India. DJ, you mentioned it briefly already. Do you think that's going to happen?
If you'd asked me before today's first ODI, I would have said that chances were higher. But we saw today, Rishabh Pant got 70, which I'm sure we'll talk about more in the next part of the show. But I think it's an option. It's something that we should probably keep open. And of course, Rahul, for me, is a certainty to get on that flight. Pant is obviously a little bit more temperamental, and I think Varun's probably feeling it more than the others, where I know he's a big Rishabh Pant fan and he's been disappointed of late. So it was good to see him get back in the runs, but I wouldn't go so far as saying that Pant is going to lose the gloves in T20. It is his format. He has done very well in the IPL previously. In fact, his breakthrough was really through the IPL, being the top run scorer for the Delhi Capitals. So it is his format, and he's a confidence player. So once he gets that confidence back, which hopefully is on the right track for, I see him keeping the gloves, and Rahul can then be free to bat. But at this stage, India are keeping their options open, and I wouldn't blame them for doing that.
Fair enough. Okay, so Varun, you told me about your top 5. Let's talk with the bowlers quickly. In the third T20, which we won, from a T20 standpoint, Shami, Bhuvi, Chahar, Kuldeep, and then Sundar was the 5th bowler, with Dubey kind of rounding out that all-round option. Do you see that being or who from that lineup do you see making it? Obviously, Bumrah wasn't playing, Chahal wasn't playing.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, just thinking of the third T20 specifically, I think Shami will make it. He's just bowling incredibly well. And apart from that, I'm trying to think, I mean, I don't know anyone else who's a guaranteed, because I think Hardik Pandya will be back. I think Jasprit Bumrah will be back. I think Chahal deserves a slot. So you're basically talking about one other bowler. I'm not sure about anyone except Mohammad Shami based on the last couple of games. And I know, Ashwin, before you call it out, that I had said Deepak Chahal is definitely going to play. But I would say he's the next best option. So to me, I think I'm just done with Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, especially in the T20 format.
It's like you read my mind, so I'm not going to make fun of you anymore on it. But yes, I think Chahar is probably still a little bit on the fence. They'll have to make a call probably in the new year. Right, so that match ended obviously with India winning by 67 runs. As I said, the West Indies batted second, made 173 for 8. Good general bowling performance all around. Kuldeep was expensive, as you know he tends to be sometimes, but picked up 2 wickets. And then Bhuvi, Shami and Chahar picked up 2 wickets apiece as well. So pretty exciting. Nice to see India win T20, a T20 series. It was at home, but it was against world champions or the reigning world champions. So a good result. 4 days off, I guess it was. And now we just completed the first ODI played in Chennai, which tends to be a slower pitch we've seen in the IPL. We've seen many test matches, etc., where the pitch hasn't held up. So the ODI took place. DJ, it sounds like you watched it, right? Do you want to run down our listeners as to what happened?
Yeah, we batted first. India, of course, batted first. And it was a strange kind of start. I mean, Rohit looked pretty good at the start, but Rahul fell early, then Rohit got out, and then Kohli also got out. So we lost 3 guys who'd scored all the runs in the third T20, right? So it was really a good chance to test our middle order. And then the 2 young guns, the Delhi Capital boys, and of course Shreyas Iyer captaining the Delhi Capitals, Rishabh Pant, came out and put on a very nice partnership. Both of them got 70, so didn't quite do the job, but stroke making looked quite difficult on that track, and the modes of dismissal that they suffered from, all of them really, was beaten for lack of pace in some ways. Rohit was caught at mid-wicket, so was Rahul trying to pull the ball. Kohli played the ball onto his stumps. Iyer flicked it to mid-wicket. Pant hit it down deep mid-wicket's throat as well. So it really looked like we struggled to gauge the pace of that track. And then I thought 288 was a decent score, to be completely honest. I mean, we'd done pretty well after having lost all those wickets, and we didn't quite get the kick at the end of the innings, but it was okay, and it was competitive, I would have said, on that track.
Let's take a quick step back, remind our listeners. The West Indies actually won the toss and chose to bowl first, which was a non-traditional decision on a Chennai wicket. Kohli said he would have wanted to bat first anyway. So I think that was one interesting thing. And then the second, before you talk about the West Indies chase, Varun, let me ask you. They went in with a number 6 who we know is your favorite. So try to put bias a little bit aside. But did Kedar Jadhav, outside of your love for him, did he deserve a spot in the 11?
No, I don't think he deserved a spot. And I know, he hit 40 of 35. And we keep, we always say he just keeps doing enough to get the next game. But I just don't understand what's the logic in playing him now. The World Cup is done. You've got no major ODI tournament coming up. You'd rather just kind of give other people like a Manish Pandey a slot. If I'm not mistaken, Kedar didn't even bowl much in this game. He bowled 1 over, gave 11 runs. So I don't know, maybe they're just trying to prepare him for the 2027 World Cup, because whatever this guy does, it just seems to be enough to keep him around for longer.
Did you say 27?
2027.
Yeah, 2027, man. 2023 is a guarantee for sure. Kedar will be there. I think we're grooming him for the next 8 years. He'll be only 44 at that point.
So, I mean, whether or not he's playing for India, he'll definitely still be playing for CSK, it sounds like.
Anyway. Yeah, on one leg, hitting the winning boundary.
He's done that already. So he's already done. So he's got to keep accomplishing more things. Anyway, interesting. I mentioned CSK. We will spend part of the second half of this show talking about the upcoming IPL auction, which is top of mind for all of us. But DJ, let me ask you before we talk about the second part. The selection. So Varun and I talked a little about the top 5. Rohit, Rahul, Kohli, Iyer and Pant. 6, 7 and 8 in this India lineup that went in to play the first ODI was Kedar Jadhav, Ravindra Jadeja and then Shivam Dube. Is that a solid 6, 7, 8 for any side in the world? Is any of them in India's top 3 to bet at 6, 7, and 8 or to play at 6, 7, 8?
So I think Varun's clearly put it in context with Kedar Jadhav, who we are grooming for 2027. So I don't think there's much more to be said on that front. But I think Jadeja is a certainty in this T20, in the ODI side, particularly because he's a class ODI player. It's not really bits and pieces player. And he showed that in the World Cup, right? And he's done well. He's batting well. His bowling wasn't great today. It kind of just sat up, and Hetmeyer really enjoyed himself of it. But I think Jadeja is a certainty in that team for his fielding, for the all-round capability that he brings. Dubé, then, on the other hand, I don't think he's a first-choice player, right? So again, what we're looking at is a replacement really for Hardik Pandya. So swap Pandya in for Dubé, and it then is Kedar, who I'm not sure deserves a spot. We probably need to play a pure batsman or a batsman who can bowl a little bit rather than Kedar, because as you say, he just does enough 40 or 35 and he's fine. He's not going anywhere really. Jokes apart, what are we waiting for him to do? But Jadeja and Pandya are your two all-rounders. So perhaps we play a batsman in that place if we can depend on Pandya for 10 overs. If not, we need to find somebody who can bat a little bit and bowl a little bit. And maybe the IPL will throw someone else like that. Maybe, I don't know, a left field kind of pick is going to come along. But yeah, I think Dubé is very much second choice when in the absence of Pandya. So it does look weak, but going forward, maybe it will look a little bit better.
Yeah, Ashwin, you threw out an interesting name, right? Nitish Rana. Now, it seems like for ODIs, it just makes sense to try somebody like Nitish Rana or even Shivam Dube because there's no big tournament coming up. You've got a little bit of time. For T20s, I agree. Throwing in new names right now may not be the perfect strategy. But Shivam Dube seems to be one of the new names. I just wish they had got a Nitish Rana as well.
Yeah, interesting. Well said. Varun, let me ask you about one more player. So top of the order, Rahul and Rohit seem like a certainty for DJ in the T20 format. I think you and I said we agree about that. But the man who's been the certainty in the ODI format for a long time is Shikhar Dhawan. So he obviously got injured, so he missed out on this series, which allowed Rahul to open in the ODIs as well. But let me run through some stats really quick. His average in ODIs at all times is 44.5, but he averaged only 36.4 this year and a strike rate of 91, which is pretty good. You know, you talked about being 70 for 0 and 10 overs. In the ODI format, in T20s, excuse me, in the ODI format, that's not the worst thing in the world, not 70, but being whatever, 45, 50, as long as you're not losing a wicket. Is this the end of the road for Shikhar Dhawan, you think? Do you think they're going to back Rahul now for all three formats to build a long career?
Definitely for T20s. I think the thing with Dhawan is, again, he performs well enough to never be out of contention. But I think for the T20 World Cup, I think they need to drop Shikhar out of the reckoning for it. And also because Rahul has come out and made a statement, right, to say that it's very difficult to not know if you've got your place inside and keep being dropped. So it's not just because of Rahul's comment I say that. I say that because I think when you've got a Rohit who you cannot drop, you need somebody like a Rahul to support and kind of play a little bit more of an aggressive innings. The only catch is Shikhar always does well in ICC tournaments, but I think the 1 year leading up to the tournament is enough prep time now for Rahul to secure his slot.
Yeah, well said. So I think interesting first innings performance, 287. You know, in general, India doesn't have a great track record of putting up big totals when neither Rohit nor Kohli puts up a 50 on the board. So with the top three making a cumulative, 46 odd runs, nice to see Pant and Iyer, I think, consolidate a little bit. Definitely great to see Pant make 70 plus. His kind of counterpart on the other side came in and took a good platform he started with and built it on to make a huge century. So DJ, what happened in West Indies' chase? During the innings break, did somebody come in and change the pitch and then Hetmeyer got to bat on an easier pitch? What happened?
I think we dropped him when he was on 106, but he also really dined down on the left arm spin of Jadeja, right? He just kept hitting him into those empty stands at the Chennai stadium. And I mean, he was just absolutely incredible. It was almost like he was sending a message to Virat Kohli, who's had him released from the RCB franchise, right? So, I think just a fantastic innings. They just ran into a guy on an absolute rampage and well played to Shimron Hetmeyer, man. I mean, terrific innings. And the pitch was actually still difficult. You could see when the new batsman came in, Puran, or our listeners who know him as Churan's son. He struggled, to be honest. And you could see how much the ball was spinning, right? There was an LBW appeal which Kuldeep went up for, and it was spinning past leg stump. It was incredible how much the ball was spinning. So I think just a fantastic innings. And I mean, we're quick to write off kind of chases, hundreds and chases. I think this was actually an innings that was much harder than he made it look, to be totally honest.
Yeah, really, really well said. Varun, let me ask you. Shimron Hetmeyer has had let's call it a middling couple of years at best, right? In 2019, he averages only 34, and that's including this inning. So, but the West Indies management backed him. He's played every single game, and now he's starting to repay that. Is that what the Indian team management needs to do with the Pant? Is that the kind of player he is, where he might fail 5, 7, 8, 10 times, but when he gets that momentum and confidence, he'll come good, and that's what the team needs from him?
I think it's possible. I think there's no right strategy for that. I think, to be very honest, Pant has been given a lot of that already. So it's about time he comes back and repays the faith shown in him. I think people like Hetmeyer are just such clean hitters of the ball. He bats at number 3. He's got great game awareness. He paced his innings really well. In fact, one of the things as DJ was talking is I realized against the West Indies, I remember quite a few instances where they've just paced their innings so well and beaten us with a few balls to spare at the end, whether it's the 2016 T20 World Cup semi-final or this game. There are quite a few that come to my mind. So, yes, I think people like Hetmeyer have real talent and the West Indies have backed them. But to be honest, if he wasn't performing well, I don't think any board can just back you continuously.
Yeah, fair enough. Well said. I do think it's interesting that the RCP have dropped him. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the second half. The last thing I want to talk about is there was another centurion in the West Indies chase as they won by 8 wickets, and that was Shai Hope. He opened the batting, batted all the way through. What was interesting is he struck at about a strike rate of 50-55. You could tell his only objective was to rotate the strike, get the strike to Hetmeyer, excuse me. And then when he got out and they needed to finish it, he was able to accelerate just enough to end his innings at a strike rate of 67. DJ, in a chase of 350, there's a guy who bats at a strike rate of 67 is a match-losing knock. Here, you look at it and say, well, he didn't get out. He anchored from ball 1, and he took the team home. Is there a place for a player like him, you think, in the future of West Indies cricket, which is known for the big, huge hitters?
Oh, absolutely. And I think he played a perfect innings. I think at one stage he was striking at below 50 while Hetmeyer was striking at about 130, right? And the innings or the partnership strike rate was just below 100, and it was absolutely perfect. And where you have all these huge hitters, and remember, they haven't got someone like an Andre Russell who they'd have up their sleeve for the T20s and maybe ODIs later. What you need is somebody to prevent the 4-5 wickets going down in a heap, and that's what the West Indies are not good at, maintaining those wickets. They're good at the big hits. Pollard didn't even have to come in. Holder didn't have to come in. So Shai Hope was really the glue that held that innings together. And I mean, he's a classy batsman, man. Like he's played a blinder in Test cricket already at Trent Bridge to beat England chasing over 300. He scored, I think, 8 one-day hundreds, and today was a perfect innings. I mean, he accelerated right at the end, but he didn't need to do anything because Hetmeyer was just taking the Indian bowling apart at that stage. So perfect innings for me. And maybe if they're chasing 350, he'll go a little bit quicker, right? Because he does have those shots. He has those big hits. And you saw that at the end where he just kind of stood up and just straight batted Chahar back over his head off a knuckleball. So there wasn't even any pace to work with. So class batsman, and well played to him today as well.
Yeah, really well said. So, interestingly, he could be the counterbalance in a side full of big hitters. He could be that stability that they need. All right, that brings us to a wrap. T20 series, as we mentioned, ended 2-1. Feeling pretty happy about that. At the time of recording, India is down 0-1 in the 3-match ODI series. They go to Visakhapatnam next on Wednesday the 18th, and they wrap up in Cuttack on Sunday, December 22nd. So before we go to break, I have to ask your predictions for this, going in 0-1 down. Varun, let me start with you. Where do you think the series is going to end?
I think it's going to be 2-1 to West Indies.
Ooh, predicting an India loss on home soil, making the controversial call. Well done. DJ, what about you?
I think we're going to end the decade with a 2-1 victory.
DJ, thank God you didn't say 3-0. Even after the first ODI has been played.
His math.
I was the one who said we're going. I said we're going to win 2-1. By the way, last week, and we won 2-1.
Yeah, but your optimism, I thought even with being one match down, I thought you might say 3-0.
It's what happens when you grow up in the 90s, where you lose every match, so you're optimistic you might win something. But
yeah, I mean, in fairness, even when they needed 46 from 46 with 8 wickets at hand, you had hope, which is pretty disappointing. But anyway.
No, they had hope. That was the problem.
All
Correct. Let's go to
on that wonderfully cheesy pun. I'm going to say 2-1 as well to India. I think Kohli will come back, want to end the year and the decade in style, and so I'm predicting 2-1 with at least one of the two matches having a nice big Kohli masterclass. With that, we're going to cut over to break. It's perfect timing because the West Indian players are all gunning for a good, nice, heavy IPL contract. So we will come back and talk a little bit about the upcoming IPL auction after the break.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also want to remind you, please do fill out our listener survey. This is a really, really important thing for us right now. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/survey. We ask you a few questions about who you are, what kind of podcast you like listening to, what do you think of things going on so far. So please do fill that out. It would help us. Also would like to thank our sponsors on the network this week. We have Intel, Cambly, and Storytel. This week on Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by writer Daksh Tyagi. Daksh talks about his debut book, A Nation of Idiots. He discusses what goes into writing satire, which is critical of the people and governments in power, and what are the legal hassles in doing so. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik is joined by brand builder and author Siddharth Banerjee and corporate mythologist and author Eka Chaturvedi Banerjee. Together, they talk about the art of hyper-learning and discuss their journey on setting up 52 red pills. On Edges and Sledges, Varun, Ashwin and DJ talk about India's T20 series win over the West Indies and the first ODI in Chennai. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks about motivation, grit, self-discipline, and about finding purpose in the everyday things that you do. On Tapri Tales, Madhuri narrates a story titled Reshma's Purse. Tune in to hear the backstories of the little things that reside inside a woman's purse. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet is joined by actor Amol Parashar and content strategist at TVF, Akansh Kaur. They talk about the risks and rewards they encountered after quitting their traditional jobs for digital media entertainment. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome back to the second half of this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. The IPL 2020 is nearly here. Varun, are you excited yet? Have you been excited basically since May for the next 11 months till it starts again?
I'm very excited and super thrilled. And yeah, the IPL is only, it's less than 6 months away now.
Yeah, it actually starts in the end of March this year. So from the time of recording this, it's 4.5 months away, which is pretty exciting. As I mentioned a couple of weeks on the show, I think the IPL, more than any cricketing franchise or event in the world, does an amazing job of keeping the hype up all through the year. So a couple of weeks ago, they had the massive player release. And so now, December 19th, which is 4 days from today, on Thursday at 2:30 p.m. India time, starts the auction. I want to run through really quickly what's going to happen, and we'll talk through each of the kind of big sides and big players available. But what's interesting is the 2021 IPL auction, which will happen about a year from now, is the big auction that happens every 3 years where teams release the majority of their players and rebuild their squads. So this year is kind of an interim one, right? As happens in the in-between years where there have been the releases, there will be teams bought, but again, most teams are buying players for just about 1 year. So, have you guys been following the news? DJ, have you been watching closely? Do you have your favorite picks already outlined?
Yeah, I mean, it's been all over Twitter, right? Everyone's got their own theory. But the best part about the auction is that nobody can say anything until the auction actually starts because you don't know what the franchise actually has in their strategy. So we have been following it. There have been some interesting base prices set. I think you said Angelo Matthews was another money laundering scheme with his 2 crore base price. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting auction, but as you said, the bigger one comes next year, right? So
yeah, well said. I don't know about money laundering, but I was surprised for sure about Angelo Matthews. So that's a good segue to talk about 7 players all overseas have listed themselves at the 2 crore price. So Chris Lynn, Pat Cummins, Glenn Maxwell, Dale Steyn, Mitchell Marsh, one of the 2 Marsh brothers, Josh Hazelwood, and of course, Angelo Matthews. Varun, do they all belong in the highest price bracket, or is it a strategy kind of like buying or selling a house, right? Where some people list themselves really high, others list themselves really, really low and hope for a bidding war?
Yeah, so definitely I don't think all the names there are justified the highest base price. To put it in context, 2 crores is not that high when you see players making 12 crores as well. But from the context of the auction, it is the highest. So within that, I think people like Lynn, Cummins, Maxwell are definitely worth it. For me, your Mitchell Marsh, Matthews, Steyn, a combination of not being in form or being injury prone may not be worth it. So I think they will not be the hot picks. But I think, one call out I just want to make is somebody like a Pat Cummins, a good bowler in the IPL can be really priceless. So I think he's going to be one of the first few that are going to be taken.
Interesting. Let me quickly run through some of the other names that weren't at the highest base price. So I'm going to race through these, but it's obviously a lot of big names. You have Owen Morgan, Jason Roy, Robin Uthappa, obviously, who was released from KKR this year, Chris Morris, Chris Wokes, Adam Zampa, Sean Marsh, David Willey, Aaron Finch, who's now played for 7 different sides already, Sam Curran, Tim Southey, Piyush Chawla, Colin Munro. The list is endless. And of course, the 2 names we talked about, both Centurions earlier today, Shai Hope and Shimron Hetmyer. Very different kinds of batsmen. There are lots and lots of other names. Jimmy Neesham's on that list. Colin de Grantham is on that list. So, DJ, let me start with you. Who are your top 2 or 3 picks that you think will get the most massive bidding war in this coming auction in 4 days?
So on bidding wars, I think Jimmy Neesham is going to get a huge bidding war because he's only listed at 50 lakhs, right, as his base price. So I genuinely think that he is going to inspire an absolute. He's going to be carnage with Jimmy Neesham. Of course, he comes with the added attraction of attracting fans on Twitter. So that is my top pick. I actually think then the other guy who's going to attract a bidding war is going to be Pat Cummins, as Varun said. He's a big name. He's a priceless bowler, a decent batsman as well. And again, for me, I think Dale Steyn, who is just an amazing bowler. He's been injury prone, but I think a team would put their faith in Dale Steyn because you could see the difference he made when he came into RCB right last year before he went away with injury. It was 2 games only, but I think he's a game changer when he's on song. So I'd say those are the 3 picks. And in terms of kind of a wild card, I'd probably say Yashasvi Jaiswal, who's had such an incredible story, right? His cricketing story is incredible. So I'd say that he'd be the wild card kind of uncapped player to my mind.
Very interesting. That's some, interesting choices. Good choice with Jaiswal as well. Varun, let me ask you, who are your top couple picks? I know you started mentioning them, but who do you think is going to get the biggest fight at this year's auction?
I think Jaydev Unadkat and Piyush Chawla.
Are those your pick for the purple cap?
DJ had a moment where
like me last year.
Yeah, DJ thought I was being serious. But
I was like, has he lost his mind?
I said it so seriously. But Piyush Chawla has been playing forever, like 20 years he's been part of the IPL.
Do you know he's the second highest T20 wicket taker or something in India?
That's right, because he's just bowled that much.
Yeah, he's played for 20 years at a 12-year-old tournament, man. Beautiful, really nice.
Exactly.
That more match from the same tutor.
That's DJ quality math.
We did have the same tutor, you know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for all the listeners out there, DJ and I had the same tutor, and you can see our quality of math.
I didn't. He didn't tutor me. I was friends with him, but he didn't tutor me.
I think the surprise picks for me are, I've already spoken about Cummins, but I think don't factor out a Morgan, a Roy. I think Uthappa actually for the price he's going at is really good, but a team that needs a top 3 Indian batsman will be looking for him. And why I say that is like somebody like Delhi is not. So I think Uthappa will be a good pick. I think those are the names, and Jimmy Neesham as well. DJ already mentioned.
I think it's interesting that neither of you mentioned Shimron Hetmyer. And for me, again, like we talk about us on the podcast, the IPL franchises have an incredibly high amount of recency bias, and so obviously he had some pretty bad form. RCB dropped him, but having made that magnificent century today, I think may have skyrocketed Shimron Hetmyer's value significantly just within the last 8 hours. So it'll be interesting to see. He's listed at 50 lakhs, and I think he's going to go for much, much higher than that. All right, let's go through the teams one by one. Just for our listeners, we're going to spend a lot more time next week after the auction's over going through what the teams ended up choosing. But I want to just make sure we help set up and talk a little about strategies and who they're going to pick. So, guys, 3 of the top 4 teams from last year were CSK, Mumbai, and the Sunrisers Hyderabad. From my vantage point, I looked through their squads, who they released, etc. For the most part, it doesn't look like any of them needs any major players. So Mumbai's got that same core crew of Rohit and Quinton de Kock with the Pandya brothers, Malinga, Bumrah, Pollard. So I think they're in pretty good shape. The only player they released is Evan Lewis, which, as unfortunate as it is, may be timely because of his recent injury. Who knows how long it'll take till he gets back. But the second team I was talking is CSK. They've got this aging squad. The vast majority of their players are over the age of 30, but also look pretty well set. I don't know if they see them going big. They may need one more pacer or a pace bowling kind of all-rounder to accompany Lungi and Giri. So just with those two to start, Chennai and Mumbai, any builds from either of you guys? Do you see them needing or going big behind anybody else?
So I think MI need an opener, right? They've let go of Evan Lewis. So, I mean, they might be looking to pick up someone like a Finch who's been around, I guess, because they've got a bit of a purse as well, but they've got so many kind of overseas players.
But they do have Rohit and Quinton de Kock, right, as their two.
Correct.
Openers,
so maybe they won't. I don't see them needing very much, but maybe that'll be one thing that they could look into.
Varun, what about you? Anything to add on CSK? They've got that same core, right? Watson, Faf du Plessis, Raina, Ambati Rayudu, Dhoni, Kedar Jadhav. Then they got Bravo, Jadeja, Santner, and then one of kind of Bhaji or Tahir will play, and then the quicks rounded out with Chahar and Ngidi. So looking pretty solid, right, compared to their 2019 season?
Yeah, I think they're just missing Matthews and Steyn to complete their perfect aging lineup.
That's Zami. By the way, Bravo's come out of retirement as well. So he's going to be back international retirement. He's come out of.
And I think there's going to be a song on retirement as well in the next 3 months.
It's all about experience, bro. My second team, CSK. That's Zami.
It's all about experience. It's all about songwriting for DJ Bravo, man.
Maybe we'll do a Tamil song next.
We have to remember to check if Chamia plays at the IPL, right? That was the disagreement Varun and I had. Anyway, all right. So those two teams feel pretty set. I'm not going to spend more time. Sunrisers Hyderabad, to me, also looks pretty set. The one big kind of release they had, or the two, I guess. One was Martin Guptill. The other was Yusuf Pathan. I don't think they're going to miss Yusuf Pathan too much as he's been a good player over the years. But I think really solid as well, right? Warner and Bairstow, Williamson, Manish Pandey. Then you got Vijay Shankar, you got Saha, Nabi, Rashid Khan, Bhovi, and then all the domestic quick bowlers, right? Siddharth Kaul, Sandeep Sharma, Khalil, and Basil. DJ, do you see, Hyderabad was a home city for you for a few years. Do you see them adding anybody?
Well, they'll add somebody, but I don't see them needing anybody, to be completely fair. They've got the top three you mentioned, absolutely incredible: Warner, Bairstow, and Kane Williamson. So that takes care of the three slots. And then you've got Rashid Khan. So their four overseas are already kind of sewn up, barring injury. They might pick up a batsman, but a local batsman, because they don't need any more overseas. So they'll be looking to pick up a local batsman, perhaps. Maybe an Uttapa is quite a good fit for SRH, actually.
Actually, DJ, I was just going to say Uttapa seems like a perfect pick for SRH.
But they've got Pandey as well, no?
I think the catch is if they don't win some of their matches, what will happen is they may need to drop one of the top three overseas batsmen. And to replace one of them, you'll have to then come in with an Uttapa.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's a good point. That's going to be an interesting one. I mean, Kane Williamson didn't play all that many games last year because they decided to go with the top two openers and then Rashid and one more foreign bowling option, right? So, interesting. I mean, what a place to be where you don't have to play Kane Williamson, one of the best players in all three formats at the moment. But Hyderabad looking pretty solid. Let's pivot and move to the Kolkata Knight Riders team. So they did release some big names. We talked about this briefly, but Chris Lynn, Carlos Brathwaite, Robin Uthappa, Varun's favorite Piyush Chawla, and then a few others. So if I look at the KKR squad now, they actually don't have an opener, right? Or they don't have a second opener, excuse me. They have Shubman Gill, and then they have, I guess, Sunil Narayan, who makeshift opens once in a while. Varun, let me start with you. Are they going to chase one of the big openers? And do you see them going after in a big way somebody like a Glenn Maxwell or a Jason Roy or an Owen Morgan? Or was releasing Chris Lynn just a strategy to try to get him back at a lower base price?
Yep. So I think they will be bidding for Chris Lynn. But at the same time, don't rule out Roy and Finch. I think these are the three guys that KKR will be going after.
Yeah, interesting. I can't see a world where, having lost Uthappa, they're looking for somebody a little bit more stable, if you will. So there are some names we haven't really talked about that are also in the bid, like a Heinrich Klaassen.
Yeah, exactly. Good player of spin, right? So Klaassen would be a good call for them. And Eden Gardens turns quite a bit. Yeah.
And if they want to go really stable, I mean, there was another two guys at 50 lakhs. One is Chiteshwar Pujara and the other is Hanuma Vihari. So they're both in the auction. You never know. They might get a bid from a Shah Rukh Khan who's in a mood one day, right? So
I'm pretty sure Delhi's going to pick up both and win the ICC.
I mean, we'll talk about Delhi at the end, but they have a fantastic test side on paper, right?
Sorry, isn't Shah Rukh Khan the owner of this team? Why are you saying he's going to play?
No, he said
the player Shah Rukh Khan.
No, actually,
there's the player Shah Rukh Khan.
There is a player Shah Rukh Khan from Chennai. I was saying maybe Shah Rukh Khan. I said maybe Shah Rukh will be in a mood and buy Pujara. That's what I said.
It would be a power move if he just bought a guy called Shah Rukh Khan.
That would be fantastic.
And then says, "Naam to sunai hoga."
Weren't you making a bad joke about Shimron also?
It's like Sachin baby and Shahrukh baby.
Anyway, let's keep going. So KKR is going to show up probably with a lot of money and a lot of buys this auction. Let's talk about RCB, the next side that released a ton of players, right? Marcus Stoinis is out. Colin de Grandhomme's out. Shimron Hetmeyer, who we talked, is out. Nathan Coulter-Nile is out. Tim Southee gone. And then a few of the other kind of smaller domestic players, etc. But again, as you look at their side, they're fortunate that Devdutt Padikkal has found some great domestic form. They got Kohli, Parthiv, AB. They're lacking a little bit in the middle order, and then they're grossly lacking from a spin bowling and a fast bowling backup options after Chahal and call it Umesh. So my gut tells me the players they're going to chase, they're going to go after probably one big name. They might go after a Sheldon Cottrell, who we didn't talk about yet, who's a West Indies quick bowler. Maybe a Chris Morris, who Delhi released this year, or also even a Glenn Maxwell type. We know the RCB team loves the big overseas hitters. So DJ, what do you think? Do you have a point of view on who RCB is going to chase?
So I think they're going to go after Steyn, because Kohli just loves Steyn. He just loves that kind of fast bowler, right? And last year we saw those images of the split screen 10 years apart. And so I think they're going to go after Steyn just because of Kohli. I also think they are going to go after Hetmeyer to buy him back for cheaper than last time. And they are probably going to try and get another bowler in, maybe a Southee or a Pat Cummins. Pat Cummins would be a good call for them, to be honest. So I think bowlers, and they're going to go after Steyn, to my mind, and an all-rounder.
Interesting. So that RCB buying Steyn again would definitely be interesting. Let's see how that shakes out. Two more teams before we talk a little about Delhi. The next being Kings 11 Punjab. So Varun, these guys released a lot of players worth a lot of money, but really nobody, I think they're going to miss too much, right? Varun Chakrabarti for 800 or 8 crores. Andrew Ty for 7, Sam Curran for 7, David Miller for 3. But I still think they look pretty well settled up top, right? Chris Gayle, KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal. They've got a weak middle order, and they're probably going to chase a pace bowler. So interestingly, Punjab's going to show up with a lot of money. Do you think of anybody they're going to target in particular? As I thought about it, they might go after Pat Cummins in a really big way because they don't need too much by way of batting.
So I have somebody in mind who I think Punjab will go for, and I think that's going to be Owen Morgan, if that's how you say his name correctly. But so I think Morgan is somebody they're going to go after because they're lacking that middle order experience. They've let go of their captain, and so the leadership experience will be needed as well. And I just think that while if KL and Gayle do well, they'll win you the game on their own, but majority of their games have been lost in the middle order.
Very interesting. I think Morgan, what's held Morgan back in the past little bit has been lack of success in the IPL. But I mean, having just won the ODI World Cup for England, I think he could be an outstanding pick. And to your point, having lost Ashwin to the Delhi side, he could be a really strong tactician on the field as well. DJ, do you have a point of view on who you think will captain Punjab? I think we talked about it briefly during the releases. Do you think Rahul's going to get that, or do you think a Mayank type of player will get that?
I think it's better to probably go for a local captain to make sure that they always play. So even if they do get someone like Morgan, I don't think he'll captain despite his pedigree, of course. So I think Rahul is not a bad shout because he's obviously a certainty in the 11. And it's probably good for him to take on more responsibility in some ways. The one guy I was thinking of we haven't spoken of is David Miller. And I only thought of it because of Punjab, and I associate Miller so strongly with Punjab. And he's been released as well, right? So there might be. So he's a similar player to Morgan, probably less consistent, but he probably might be that they'd be someone they'd be looking to buy back, or maybe I'm just like getting nostalgic and I like to see.
You just want a little bit more of the if it's in the arc, hit it out of the park, right? David Miller's specialty.
That's it. It's Miller time.
All right, second last team before we talk Delhi, the Rajasthan Royals. Again, pretty big releasers, right? Obviously, the big money release was Jaydev Unadkat, but they sold Rahane, they got rid of Rahul Tripathi. So the obvious place they're going to go first is to find an opener. They have Joss Butler, who's played kind of all over the batting order for them, but they're going to need another opener. And then with Steve Smith, Sanju Samson, Riyan Parag had a good year, and then they've got some bowling firepower with Jofra Archer. I have a feeling Rajasthan's going to come out and bid pretty big this auction. They're going to need to round out their lineup pretty well. So I think they might go after one more potential quick bowler. I think Rajasthan could actually benefit with a Finch type bowler at the batsman, at the top of the order to play with Butler. But Rajasthan has been the wild card at auctions every single year, so I think they'll end up with some good buys, but it's really hard to predict which ones at this stage. Right. So let's talk a little bit more about the Delhi Capitals, right? The home team we all love and care about so much. We've talked about it briefly on the show. A couple of big kind of changes coming into this year. Obviously, Ravi Ashwin slots in as a bowler, or he'd probably think of himself as a bowling all-rounder. Ajinkya Rahane came in, to Varun's point, to try to help us round out the best test team playing the IPL. But Varun, let me start with you. Who is Delhi's big target going to be? I thought it would be Mitchell Starc. Obviously, since then, Starc pulled his name out of the auction pool. So who's Delhi going to chase?
So I think with Ponting being the coach, I think he's made his preference for Pat Cummins quite clear. So I think they're going to chase Pat Cummins very hard, and they're going to look at him to support Rabada as a good bowling combination. Yeah, they've also come out and said they're definitely not looking for a top 4 batsman. But again, Delhi's issue has always been that number 6 guy who can walk in and hit. So again, you'll never throw Maxwell out of the mix. Maxwell has played for Delhi before, but yeah, I think those are the 2 names that come to my mind.
Very interesting. I think you highlighted the key opportunities really well. DJ, let me ask you, are we going to bid for Chris Morris again? And was this all a ploy to get him at a cheaper price? Is Maxwell going to come back in, or where else are they looking?
So they've all been kind of disappointing, haven't they, these guys? I think Varun's right that we'll be looking at Pat Cummins. Ponting's actually made some comments about all-rounders and Colin DeGrando, Mitchell Marsh, Pat Cummins, and he finds all-rounders very interesting and this and that. What I would like to see is a good overseas quick, because we've got lots of Indian homegrown batsmen. And that would be someone like a Sheldon Cottrell, actually, to partner Rabada, because he gives you the left-arm variety. And he's clever at T20 cricket, and he does well. He got Kohli out today as well, and he's got good batsmen out before. So I think we're looking for someone like him, or maybe even a Williams, a Kesrick Williams, if the RCB don't pick him up. But I think that is one area that we would look at, and I would love to see Cottrell bowl there, because he's got these cutters which would really stick in the Kotla pitch. And then the big question about who the all-rounder is going to be. I would love to see Jimmy Neesham there. I mean, great batsman, can bowl. He's like Morris on speed, right? Morris on a mix of speed and cocaine and heroin or whatever else. So he's just great. And I would absolutely love to see Jimmy Neesham come to Delhi. But I don't know whether that's going to happen. If we buy Morris back, we need to utilize him better. We need to be able to send him up the order and use him, because we haven't used him properly. And when we have put him up there, he hasn't done well. So it's been a combination of bad management and bad performances from Morris. He's a good player, and he's won South Africa games. So we should be looking to get that all-rounder slot filled up.
Yeah, I'm 2 things really quick. I hope we don't rebid for Morris. He's had a good run with Delhi, but I think he's starting to run out of steam a little bit with at least this side. Maybe he'll find a new franchise and do great again, but he's not the right pick for me. 2, DJ, as our resident social media leader, can you please make sure to tweet Jimmy Neesham and say we called him Chris Morris on a mixture of speed and cocaine on this show? I think he'll appreciate hearing that reference about him.
And heroin as well.
And heroin, of course. So all in. The last thing I want to say about the Delhi side is, I mean, we talked about the really big names, but I'm going to run through a few of the other options that they're going to be chasing. And I think you guys are spot on. Fast bowler and or fast bowling all-rounder is who we're going to chase. Chris Wokes is one who's had some success for KKR. I think an outstanding bowler, probably not as much of an all-rounder, but he can bat at 8, and I think that could be a pretty solid pick. We talked about Sam Curran a little bit before. I think the other couple ones that have had good histories in the IPL, and this is maybe out of left field, but Thisara Pereira is not currently with a franchise. He's in the auction. He's played for lots of teams before, but could be an interesting pick as that kind of number 6-7 guy. And then, of course, Corey Anderson being the last one who's played for franchises before. Varun, do you think any of those guys would be on Delhi's radar?
Yeah, I definitely think a couple of them, but I think people like Corey Anderson, it's just a thing of the past now for me. So I'm going to stick to my 2 original picks.
And not Thisara for me, man. Thisara is just, his bowling is just too bad. I mean, he might hit you 2 6s, but I mean, his bowling is just rubbish.
Yeah, but he'll get hit for another 5 instead. I think the only name that Ashwin said was Chris Wokes for me. I think that would be a good pick.
That's because you have a man crush on him, as you admitted.
Exactly.
on the pod.
And Pat Cummins is pretty good looking too.
That's true. But if you had to choose between the 2, who would you go for, dude?
I think Chris Wokes.
Was that a question about who Delhi should buy or who's better looking?
No, who's better looking? Who Delhi should buy? I'm not sure.
Oh, I was gonna ask who you're gonna buy. Nice.
All right.
Love it.
Yeah, indeed.
Value for money, guys.
On that happy note, I think that brings us to the wrap on this section and the end of today's show. We do want to mention that, in the support of domestic cricket, the Ranji Trophy has started again. Prithvi Shaw made a magnificent century. Lots of young players batting and bowling really, really well, but it's just kicked off. Only one match has been completed. So over the holiday season in December, if India not playing a match from December 22nd to Jan 5th is too long for you, make sure you find time to tune in to support our domestic cricket as well. It's a fantastic level and quality of cricket, and most of it is available to watch as well. That brings us to the end of episode 88. As I mentioned, we'll be back next week to talk about the next two ODIs and the wrap of the India-West Indies series. And, of course, most importantly, the results of this IPL auction. We'll get to review which of us was right, wrong, which player got the crazy bid, because somebody's going to go to 11 or 12 crore, and it's hard to predict who right now. So thank you, as always, for listening. Follow us on social media at One Tip One Hand on Twitter, Facebook, etc. We love hearing from you, reading your messages, sharing them, and we will be back in about a week's time. Thanks so much.
This is the amazing story of something awesome. Once, Chuck decided to start a podcast. And so he did. The end. Okay, that was a crappy story. But I've got some really cool stories over at my new show, The Origin of Things. On this podcast, I look at the stories of how brands came into being and sometimes evolved out of quite unexpected circumstances. And to make it really fun, I reveal the name of the brand and sometimes a category only at the very end. The show is 5 to 7 minutes per episode and perfect for trivia junkies and brand nerds, especially those with short attention spans. New episodes out every Wednesday on IVM Podcast app or website, or any podcast app or site that you happen to prefer. End of story. They lived happily ever after.
How many times have you caught yourself Googling stuff on health and wondering if it's the right information? How many times have you heard different health experts give opposing views, which has only left you confused? There are rising cases of cancer, heart, diabetes, stress, and autoimmune diseases. Meet the patients and the experts who paved the path of true healing. Join me, Rachna Chachi, cancer nutrition coach and nutritional therapist on Heal and Hearty. I take you through my own journey of recovery from an incurable disease and the journey of so many others who healed only via nutrition and holistic healing. Find the answers you seek for what's good for your health and what's good for your soul. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. Don't forget your date with good health.